At 1500 hours on June 22, 1893, Vice-Admiral Sir George Tryon stood on the bridge of HMS Victoria, flagship of the Royal Navy's Mediterranean Fleet. The afternoon sun blazed over the Syrian coast. 10 battleships steamed in 2 parallel columns off Tripoli. Victoria led the starboard column. HMS Camperdown, under Rear Admiral Albert Markham, commanded the port column. The distance between columns, 6 cables, 1,200 yards. Tryon was 53 years old, 37 years of naval service, a reputation for innovative tactics and aggressive maneuvering. His officers called him brilliant, some called him reckless. Today, he would order a turn that violated basic principles of seamanship. The maneuver was simple in concept. Each column would turn inward 180 degrees, reversing direction. The ships would pass each other at close quarters in opposite columns, a display of precision for the assembled fleet. But there was a problem. The turning circle of these battleships exceeded the distance between columns. HMS Victoria, 10,470 tons displacement, 360 feet long. Twin 16, 25-inch breech-loading rifles and a single turret forward. The most powerful guns afloat. Compound engines driving twin screws. Maximum speed 17 knots. Turning circle at standard speed. Approximately 800 yards diameter. HMS Camperdown, 10,600 tons. 330 feet. Similar specifications. Similar turning radius. The mathematics were unavoidable. 2 ships, each requiring 800-yard turning circles, separated by only 1,200 yards. The geometry made collision inevitable. Captain Maurice Burke, Victoria's flag captain, immediately recognized the danger. He questioned the order. Staff Commander Thomas Hawkins Smith performed rapid calculations on the bridge. The numbers confirmed what instinct already knew. The turn was impossible at this separation. Hawkins Smith approached Tryon. "The distance is insufficient, sir." Tryon waved him away. "Leave it to me." Rear Admiral Markham, aboard Camperdown, received the signal. He read it twice. His staff officers exchanged glances. The order made no sense. Markham knew these ships. He knew their capabilities. He knew this would put them on a collision course. He hesitated. Seconds passed. Minutes. Victoria's signal flags remained flying, waiting for acknowledgement. Markham faced an impossible choice. Obey an order he knew was wrong, or question the judgment of his superior officer in front of the entire fleet. Victorian naval discipline was absolute. Challenging a flag officer's command was unthinkable. He ordered his signals officer to acknowledge. At 1528, both columns began their turns. Victoria turned to port. Camperdown turned to starboard. The massive battleships heeled slightly as their rudders bit. Engineers below deck fed coal to the boilers. Black smoke poured from the funnels. The ships gathered momentum into their turns. Officers on both bridges watched. The geometry was becoming obvious. The turning circles overlapped. The ships were converging. Still, neither commander took action. Tryon stood rigid on Victoria's bridge, eyes fixed ahead. Markham gripped the rail of Camperdown's bridge, watching the distance close. At 15:30, Victoria's officer of the watch called out, "Camperdown is closing, sir." The distance had shrunk to 400 yards. Both ships were still turning. Their bows pointed directly at each other. Tryon finally reacted. "Full astern both engines." Victoria's engine room received the order. Engineers spun valve wheels. Steam pressure reversed. The twin screws bit water, fighting the ship's forward momentum. A 10,470-ton battleship does not stop quickly. The laws of physics are unforgiving. Aboard Camperdown, Markham gave the same order. "Full astern." His engine screamed in reverse. Too late. The gap continued to close. 300 yards. 200 yards. Officers and crew on both ships could see each other's faces across the narrowing water. HMS Camperdown had been designed with an underwater ram bow, an 8-foot protrusion below the waterline reinforced with solid iron, a weapon from an earlier era of naval warfare. In 1893, it was considered obsolete. Guns had replaced rams, but the ram was still there, built into the hull, waiting. At 1534, Camperdown's ram bow struck HMS Victoria's starboard side. The impact occurred 12 feet below the waterline, just forward of the starboard engine room. The reinforced ram punched through Victoria's hull plating, like a knife through canvas. Steel buckled, rivets sheared. The ram penetrated 9 feet into the flagship's hull, opening a hole approximately 120 square feet in area. The sound was heard across the fleet. Metal screaming, men shouting, steam escaping. Victoria shuddered from bow to stern. Camperdown's engine still drove her forward, the ram buried deeper. Then Camperdown reversed, her propellers churning. The ram withdrew from Victoria's side. Seawater rushed in. The Mediterranean flooded into Victoria's starboard engine room. Engineers scrambled up ladders. Some made it. Some didn't. The water level rose at shocking speed. Within seconds, the starboard engine was submerged. Within a minute, water reached the lower deck level. The ship immediately developed a 10-degree list to starboard. Tryon's first words after impact, it's all my fault. He gave no orders to abandon ship. Not yet. Victoria's pumps engaged automatically. 4 pumps capable of moving 800 tons of water per hour. But the hole was massive. Water entered faster than pumps could remove it. The ship's fate was already sealed. Damage control parties rushed to the scene. They found the hole too large to plug, water pressure too strong. The starboard engine room was completely flooded. The starboard boiler room was flooding. Watertight doors were closed, but the damage was catastrophic. The ship's longitudinal bulkheads, designed to provide structural integrity, now trapped water within compartments. At 15:38, 4 minutes after impact, Victoria's list increased to 18 degrees. Men struggled to walk on the tilting deck. Equipment broke loose. Anything not secured slid toward the starboard rail. The ship's massive forward turret, weighing over 750 tons, added to the imbalance. As the bow dipped, the turret's weight pulled the ship further forward and down. Captain Burke ordered boats prepared. Sailors uncovered launches and cutters, but the list was increasing too quickly. Davits couldn't swing free, ropes fouled. Boats hung uselessly against the hull. Only a few could be launched successfully. At 15:40, the list reached 30 degrees. Men began sliding across the deck. Some grabbed railings. Some went over the side. The ship was going down bow first, starboard side submerged. The massive 16 25-inch guns pointed uselessly into the water. Tryon remained on the bridge, expressionless. Officers urged him to save himself. He refused. Other ships of the fleet rushed to assist. HMS Nile came alongside, attempting rescue operations. Sailors threw ropes. Some Victoria crewmen jumped into the water. Others clung to the rising port side, hoping for more time. There was none. At 15:45, 11 minutes after impact, Victoria's bow touched bottom. She was in 60 fathoms of water, 360 feet deep. Not deep enough to fully swallow the ship, but deep enough to drown her. The bow struck the seabed while the stern remained above the surface. The ship pivoted on her bow, rising nearly vertical. Men fell from the stern. Bodies tumbled through the air. Some hit the water. Some hit the propellers, still turning slowly. The ship's angle approached 90 degrees. The stern rose higher. The propellers broke the surface, dripping. The rudder exposed to sunlight. At 15:47, 13 minutes after the collision, HMS Victoria slipped beneath the Mediterranean. The stern descended with gathering speed. A massive whirlpool formed. Debris scattered across the surface. Bodies, wreckage, oil, flotsam. The sea closed over the flagship. Rescue operations continued for hours. Ship's boats pulled survivors from the water. The count was grim. Of Victoria's crew of 430 officers and men, only 73 survived. 357 died. Among the dead, Vice-Admiral Sir George Tryon, Captain Maurice Burke, Staff Commander Hawkins Smith, the Admiral's staff, most of the engine room crew, most of the junior officers. Tryon was last seen standing on the bridge as the ship went down. Multiple witnesses confirmed it. He made no attempt to save himself. He gave no final orders. He simply stood, watching his flagship die. His body was never recovered. The investigation began immediately. Court-martial proceedings, testimony from survivors, technical analysis. The questions were obvious. Why did Tryon order an impossible maneuver? Why did Markham obey? Why did no one prevent the collision? The testimony revealed a culture of absolute obedience. Officers who recognized the danger had remained silent. Markham had doubted the order but obeyed. Burke had questioned but yielded. The Victorian Royal Navy prized discipline above initiative. The cost was 357 lives. Some theorized that Tryon had intended a different maneuver. Perhaps he meant to order a turn at greater separation. Perhaps he miscalculated the distance. Perhaps he confused his signals. No one knows. Tryon took his reasoning to the bottom of the Mediterranean. The court-martial absolved Markham of blame. The judgment was clear. He had followed orders from his superior officer. Questioning those orders would have been insubordination. The culture that created the disaster protected those who survived it. Others were less fortunate. Commander Hawkins Smith, who had warned Tryon, was dead. Captain Burke, who had questioned the order, was dead. The men who spoke up paid with their lives. The man who obeyed was exonerated. The wreck of HMS Victoria lies in 145 meters of water off the coast of Lebanon. She settled upright on the seabed, her bow buried in Mediterranean mud. Her guns point downward into the abyss. Her hull is intact but broken. She will never rise again. The disaster changed nothing. The Royal Navy continued to prize obedience over judgment. Officers continued to follow orders without question. The culture of absolute discipline survived the ship that it killed. It would take another war, another generation before the lesson was learned. Blind obedience is not leadership. It is the path to catastrophe. Vice-Admiral Sir George Tryon was 53 years old when he died. 37 years of service, a brilliant career, a reputation for innovation, a single fatal decision. In 13 minutes, he destroyed his flagship, killed 357 men, and erased his legacy. He is remembered not for his victories, but for his final catastrophic mistake. HMS Victoria remains on the seafloor, a monument to the price of error. Divers have visited the wreck. They report seeing the massive guns, still trained into the darkness. The propellers, frozen mid-turn. The hull, broken but defiant. The ship waits in the deep, holding the stories of 357 men who never came home.